Supercharged, a podcast focusing on renewable energy and the passion behind the movement. Supercharged is a thoughtful journey through renewable energy sustainability and an integrated lifestyle. Subscribe and listen each week as we chat with thought leaders, influencers, and those who simply choose to live a better way. And hopefully, along the way, you too will be inspired to live supercharged. This is Kevin Pruitt with another episode of Supercharged, the podcast. I have a special guest with me today, Petra Zink. Petra, thank you for joining us on Supercharged.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
I am looking forward to diving down again, but we always like to lay a really good foundation with our guests and our audience. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Petra Zink. I live in sunny Brisbane in Australia for the last 11 years, originally from Austria. And I'm onto my third career. I'd probably say third and a half because I am in the midst of launching a book. And we are probably going to see quite a bit of change with that in 2022 and beyond. So currently I'm running two businesses, Impacct and 360 Talent Co. Both businesses are designed to help leaders and their companies to future-proof themselves. And we do this by building strong personal brands and help them to become the go-to in their field.
We're going to dive down into that in a minute, but I just really want us to lay a really good foundation. You know this podcast and kind of the ethos behind it is really around sustainability. It's renewable energy, kind of, and just living differently as a whole. But when you hear the word sustainability, what does that mean to you?
I think it's all about being mindful. So many people just live in the day with anything that they're doing, and sustainability is simply building a foundation to be more intentional about your footprint that you leave behind for yourself, for your kids, for the next generation. And it's everything from how you consume in the end, to how you live, to what kind of systems do you set up, because that's, I think, a big part to make sustainability sustainable, that you've got actually systems in place to make it work, because if anything is too hard, you're not going to sustain that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And I've asked this question on other podcasts, other episodes of this podcast, and it's interesting how many people are talking about, you'd almost define the word using the word itself. It has to be sustainable, to fit in the definition of sustainability. I mean, by definition, it has to be something that can continue and carry on and that type of thing. But so when you hear that, when you hear mindful, when you hear being intentional, those things, what does that mean in your lifestyle? Like, how do you wake up in the morning, and how does that make a difference in how you walk out through your day?
I'm a big fan of routines because I want to take out of the guesswork as to what am I doing next, and waste a lot of time just doing the thinking as to what's next, and having the transition between tasks and how I'm doing the day-to-day tasks. So I've got a very strict, in quotation marks, routine, because this creates so much freedom for myself. So I always wake up the same time, and it's early, but it works for me. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and then my day starts.
That's not in the morning. That's in the middle of the night.
I've heard that before.
Wow.
But for me, having a good night routine is also part of it. So I always have my gym clothes ready to go. I've got my pre-workout ready to go. I don't have to think of anything like that. So any day-to-day tasks that I can repeat and rinse and repeat, there's a process for it, and I prepare for it so it doesn't take away any mental capacity for it. And I also have my non-negotiables, and there are 3 big things. So it's exercise, and I always say the busier I am, the more I exercise, because that keeps me in check, that keeps me sane, and it also keeps ideas flowing. The other one is a walk and talk with my partner. This is how we connect with each other. This is how we exchange ideas. This is how we get rid of all the baggage that happened throughout the day. And also learning in one way or the other. It might be listening to a podcast, it might be reading, it might be doing an online course, it might be joining a conference, whatever it might be. But these are my values in action, that I would say. And this is also, I can sustain that. It's small things, but it makes all the difference in my life and how I show up to the world.
So we got exercise, walk and talk, and what was the third one?
Learning in one way or the other.
That's right, continuous learning. So I mean that's like a holistic life plan. That's a 360-degree life plan that you've just created for yourself. But so when you think about that, when you think about like how you even approach business, I mean, do those three kind of pillars, do they come into play in when you design businesses or when you work with clients?
Absolutely, because in the end, if you want to be a sustainable high performer, you need to create systems and process around your personality and what energizes you. Because I'm such a big introvert, and I do a lot of client-facing activities, from speaking to coaching to training to all of the outward-facing activities. I need a lot of my own time to recharge,
Got to
and
recharge those
even
batteries. That's right.
exactly. So it's about being mindful of what energizes you, what drains you, what do you need in order to balance each other out. Because of course, I don't want to make it my narrative and say I'd rather stare against the wall for the next 30 years because this is my personality trait. I make the best out of it and have systems in place to balance it out. So exercise is just a way for me to recharge my batteries, to get some clarity, because I've got so many ideas and often I also get stuck to take the next step. When I was writing the book, there was such a big block how I could combine two ideas and I couldn't get to it. So I was just running a lot more than I usually do. I went to the gym more, I went swimming more, because eventually it clicked when I was moving. So it's very much part of the business. And I always say my biggest chunk of the work is actually done when I'm exercising at the gym, because I always make notes already. So when I come to my desk, I just get everything done rather than thinking about how to get moving. And this is very much a sustainable business for me. I don't do a 9 to 5, I'm more so a 24/7, but it's on my terms. If I say I want to catch up on admin work on a Sunday afternoon that I'm not rushed on a Monday, it's my choice.
Yeah.
And this is again sustainability. I don't need strict working hours. I don't need a 40 hours week or a whatever week. Some weeks are more, some are less. It comes down to going with the flow and also realizing what stages of business and in life you're in. What do you need to prioritize? For me, it's currently all about career. In a few years, it might not be the case anymore, and my personal health might be more relevant at that stage. But it's also embracing the changes that come with the different stages in life that you're in.
So when's the last time you would say that you had like just a typical 9 to 5, kind of work routine? How long has it
Never.
been? No, no, that's
Never.
not true. You worked for you worked for some agencies before, and you
I
were kind of in
did.
corporate
Yes.
life before, but it's been a little
But I
while.
wish it was a 9 to 5, because
Oh, that's
I
what
was
you mean.
managing big teams. When the team came in, usually around 8 until 5, until they left, I couldn't get anything done. So I was in the office usually by 6:15, 6:30, and then stayed until 8. And then because I always moonlighted, or not always, but 2 years before I left corporate, I moonlighted. So
Yeah.
from 8:30 to midnight, I usually worked throughout the week and then on the weekends. So the traditional 9 to 5, I actually sometimes wish I had that, but I never had it. But it
That
also
is
keeps me
funny.
interested, to be honest. And
Oh, for sure.
when we talk about sustainability, a big part for me is also sustainable income, that you
Mhm.
don't rely on one income stream. And to be honest, I thought about when was the last time I had only one income, and I can't even remember it, because since I was 16, I was always working at least 2 jobs whilst going to uni or still at high school. And now I counted, because I put it into my book and I thought it was 8 income streams, but it was actually 11. But they're all complementing each other. So, when COVID-19 hit, I felt sorry for myself, clearly, for a couple of days, because 2 of my biggest income streams just fell apart.
Yeah, vanished.
Um, yes, and so many businesses went out of business because of that. So they didn't have a sustainable business model. Now, after I had a little pity party, I just focused on the other income streams and built them out. So I could sustain the trough that I had in those
Mhm.
2 chunks with other offers. I think this is also part of a holistic planning and sustainability planning. What are the contingencies that you have in place, that you're not just working out of fear all the time, but you can work out of power?
Yeah, I have I have heard you talk and seen, videos that you've done and things like that enough to know that, I mean, that is absolutely on message, with how you would normally do a presentation. But I'm really curious, like, so let's just take a typical day. So how you view the environment, or the, renewable energy, the whole space around this, how does that affect how you live day to day? So what does it look like in your world?
I'm out a lot. It starts with a walk, a run. I usually take my dog for a couple of walks throughout the day. And it starts by, I hate seeing trash around on, pathways and so forth. So I always pick that up. And it's funny because there's an older lady who does exactly the same. So we usually on the trash hunt, treasure hunt, to get all the trash into the bins. So it starts that small things, we don't want to have a medal for it, but we just want to have a clean environment because we use it. And we don't want to have all, the cigarette butts and everything lying around. So it starts there. We always recycle. That's, we've never not done it. So it's small things like that. But again, it needs to be set up with different bins that it's easy to access, that it's easy to put away.
Back to your systems again and your processes.
Exactly, because you just want to take the guesswork out. After the third time, it being too hard, you give up. So you can have all the best intentions, but if you actually don't put things into practice, you're not going anywhere. And fine enough, because we have quite a few like bottles and so forth with the recycle change. This is how we give it to my partner's parents, but they got $280 so far just from glass bottles and so forth this year. And this is actually our Christmas lunch money.
Wow. What a way to fund it.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. So do you see a lot of people say in your demographic, in your area, do you see solar roofing? Do you see electric vehicles? Do you see, kind of these major steps, toward, a cleaner environment, toward sustainability? Do you see some of this becoming more prevalent in the area you live?
Yes and no. It's still a very traditional suburb that we live in. However, seeing the new buildings, and we're actually currently on house hunt, we are looking for exactly that we can also look for energy bills, for example, because it's a ripple effect.
Yep.
There are parts in Europe, so I'm from Austria, there are parts that are a lot more sophisticated in that area. And my brother, for example, he's an architect, and he's only 1 in 2 who are specialized in passive houses. So his walls are massive, and he doesn't need a warming, or what's it called, a heating system, because everything regulates itself, and there's always 23 degrees in the house. And I think it's fascinating. Are we there yet in Australia? No, I don't think so. But it's also a different climate, obviously.
Sure. Maybe less necessary in kind of a warmer climate. But it's interesting to me, the whole idea of a passive house. Is that because they're taking like the constant air out of the ground? Is that how they're sourcing these, or keeping the house at a constant temperature?
Yeah, it's an insulating system. So as I said, his walls are literally 1.3 meters big, so it's massive. And also the windows are incredible. And then there's a deduction system that constantly filters air through. So again, it's fascinating. But his heating bill is 0. And in Austria it can get really cold with minus 20 degrees in winter. So it saves a lot of money. And growing up, we had like coal when we were kids as the only heating system in the house, and it cost a lot of money. And then we got into oil when we had a little bit more money to upgrade, basically. But it cost, I remember, like a fortune every winter to fill up. And now, but back then there was no technology available. Nowadays we've got a lot more systems in place how we can be more mindful with sustainable living.
And it's amazing just the improvements that they've made in solar roofing and in just like you said, passive housing. I mean, just the controls, the way that air conditioning runs, the way that heating runs. I mean, it truly is amazing. Insulation's better. Window, the R factor on windows is better for sure. But yeah, I'm really curious about this idea, because I think I was watching a video one day that was talking about a German company that I believe it was called like Hot House or Hoff House or something like that. And it sounds pretty similar. It's like the walls actually were, they had an air gap between the walls that allowed circulation, and it kept it at a pretty constant temperature, like you were talking about. I mean, there was a air circulation system in it that kept air moving, and it kept it cool in the summer and hot in the winter. So it's
a new concept, though.
Concept, yeah.
It is, because what I still can't get my head around, and I think more would struggle with that idea, you don't open windows. because you get fresh air through a
Yep.
circulation system, but we are used to just opening windows and you
Right.
get fresh air in. So I don't think that we've got enough education and awareness that it's not necessary. And it's also, I think you miss the feeling of just having this breeze coming from outside.
Yep.
And
The
because
outside
it's not
air.
as common yet, it just will take a lot more time to get through the mainstream population.
You know what they're doing? They're trying to prepare us for living on Mars with Elon Musk. That's what it is. We're going to be in self-contained. I'm not, because I'm old, but you may live in a
no, thank you.
capsule on Mars that never opens the window, for sure. So if you were talking to people like tomorrow that you know, they certainly have a heart for this, but they don't really know steps to take, you know, whether it's in business or whether it's in their lifestyle, how would you, you know, kind of guide someone? Here's some first steps that you can take to really be more intentional and really kind of make an impact in your small little space.
I think that's a really important part. You just mentioned the small space. It also small steps. Can we change everything straight away? No, it's not sustainable either, because it's too much of a shock to the system that we're probably putting our hair up and say, no, thank you. So I would say you need to take stock where you are right now. What do you do in the business, from printing to lighting to everything? Have you got plastic bottles, for example? Take just inventory and say, what can we do over the next 3 months to make that sustainable? So I have a paperless office. I have had one for probably day dot for the last 5 years, because I don't want to print. So everything has an e-signature, for example, small things like that. What I definitely still need to do a lot better is, energy drinks, for example. Unfortunately, I like them, but they are not the best for the environment. To cut that down to 1 a week rather than 5 a week. Small things like that you don't want to take away all your joy and your habits, but you slowly want to replace it. Say, instead of this, I'm drinking a soda water with some fresh lime, and I don't need to have the aluminum, for example.
Yeah.
So just small steps, and then when you've nailed one area, we can tackle the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, rather than going all in and overcommit and then get off track straight away.
Then once again, it's not sustainable.
Yes, exactly.
Habits that you don't keep are certainly not sustainable. So when you look at people, around you, companies around you, who would you say really stands out that you say they are really making a tremendous impact in this space?
Well, there are plenty. Like a lot of my companies that I work with and my clients, they have, for example, fully digital offices now. There is no paper trail as such anymore. Also, one of my clients is also Domino's, and I love the initiative of giving for good. So they are also giving back to less fortunate and privileged families and invest in education, for example. So it's also the circular economy, basically. How can we reinvest profits, for example, and even have a dedicated non-for-profit associated with the for-profit business? Small things like that, because again, we can't change everything straight away, especially if the operations and the systems are not set up for it. But small steps along the way it's worth celebrating it already.
Did you say Domino's?
Good, yeah.
Like the pizza company?
Yeah.
Domino's Australia is leading the way in sustainability. That is great.
Well, in terms of the operations, probably not the best example out there. There would be plenty more, but they do what they can with what they've got, and this is what I'm all for.
One thing that's interesting is I've seen commercials where they actually have electric delivery vehicles, like
yes.
self-driven, I guess, delivery, vehicles type things. So yeah, for sure. I think they're certainly embracing that. And what is the next move, and I mean, you see companies like Amazon, thinking, what does it look like to have driverless, or drones that are delivering, packages or that type of thing. But so what, when you really think about this space and you think about like the future, what is it going to take in your estimation to really make an impact on a large scale?
As in the actual time frame, how long it takes?
Well, no, like what what do you think it's going to take as far as effort, as far as initiatives, as far as, what are the things that you think need to be done that would have the greatest impact?
Well, it would need to be a lot more impactful on the person itself, because currently, do we feel a personal impact if we are not recycling? No. So how many people are changing their behavior if there's no quote unquote punishment to it or reward for it? So, and I think also a lot more education around it. In Australia, to be honest, we've got a really good startup system, and they focus on topics like circular economy, for example,
Right.
or renewable energies. Also, especially in Australia, we've got so much sun, and
Yeah.
same with wind. So how can we make that better? And I think also a lot more funding should go into those programs. There should be a lot more education in primary schools onwards, that we have a different level of awareness. When I was in school, nobody talked about sustainability. It was not a topic.
Yep.
Nobody cared, to be honest.
Yep. I bet if you went back now in your Austrian schools, I bet they certainly would have. I mean, this would be a major point of emphasis, in the education system.
Yeah, and I also teach at a university for the Bachelor of Management, and one of their units is sustainability for management.
Right.
Which I never had.
Yeah. And it wasn't that long ago that you were there. So
yeah, well, it's 15 years this year. It's a little while, but ethics overall. So we need to be a lot more mindful how we do business and what kind of footprint do we leave behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Petra, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. And is there anything that we just haven't touched on that you think would be just a really good way to wrap this up, and maybe just tell people where to find you online?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's not the best time to create a business on your terms, but also that makes a bigger impact and leaves a legacy. And if you can support with your course another course, it has a ripple effect. So who could you be associated with, who you can support, who aligns with your values? And again, it comes down to proper branding exercises. What are the values that you want to embrace, that you want to live, that you want to be associated with, and who lives that already? How can you create synergies that you can create a lot more momentum? And this is what sustainability is all about. We have to change not only jobs, but careers more often. So having one degree and one level of experience doesn't get us anywhere. It's not sustainable either. So what can you do to constantly progress, move forward, educate yourself, and also get inspired by?
I think your 3 pillars are great. I mean, the kind of the walk and talk, the exercise, and how do you continually learn? Those 3 things. I mean, you kind of once again touched on those without saying them. It's amazing how you wrap those up. But so where can people find you online?
So the best place would probably be my website, which is Impact with CCC, because I'm all about making an impact, whatever that might mean for you. So it's also about being clear what it actually means to you. There's no right or wrong on that element. And there are lots of free resources. I also have my own podcast called Your Brand, Your Future, because what you do today impacts your tomorrow. And LinkedIn is my second home. So I'm always happy to connect there too.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that those are in the show notes. But Petra, thanks again for just joining us today and just, sharing your own heart, sharing what you do, what you believe, and how that impacts the way you live, and how it also impacts the way you are teaching people how to do business that is also good business. Petra, have a great afternoon. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.